and then Simon here will talk to us about the case company. So as you all know, Sustainability Case Competition is a competition that gives you all the opportunity to apply the theoretical business knowledge that you've gained in your class to a real-life sustainable enterprise. From participating in this competition, you'll gain insights into sustainable business, as well as increasing your crucial skills in teamwork and analysis. So with regards to the format of Sustainability Challenge, obviously today is the verbal pitch where you will hear about our case company. And then on Thursday is the due date for the written proposals. Proposals are due strictly at 10 a.m. and will not be accepted after 10. These proposals have to be a maximum of 5 pages, which is 11-point font, and that includes everything other than references. So once you've all submitted your written proposals, we will then go through and select 3 finalists. These finalists will then present to a panel of judges, which I will talk about later, on Friday at 5 p.m. From there, the judges will choose a winning team who will then give a condensed version of their presentation at the close of Sustainability Week, which will be at 6 p.m. So today we have Simon Millar, who is from Pure Advantage, which is your case company. So Pure Advantage is an organisation that believes in the value that the private sector has in enhancing the wealth and the green of New Zealand. So Simon is the CEO of Pure Advantage, and he is passionate about taking people and projects forward to achieve business growth through the lens of sustainable strategy. Simon will be one of your judges, and it'll be him and Peter Mills, who is the founder of Pure Advantage. And in 1980, Philip was the one, he founded Les Mills, the gym, and he's a pioneer of international fitness. So I will now hand you over to Simon to talk more through the case company.
Great, thank you very much. Thanks very much for having me to the MCC group, and wish you guys all the best with the competition. So how I'm going to run it is very, very free flowing. So if you guys have got questions during, let's have a question rather than wait till the very end. So make it very sort of interactive, because I don't have like an official kind of pitch to give you. But first let me ask you, who's familiar with Pure Advantage? Or who is not familiar with Pure Advantage? Everyone is not familiar with Pure Advantage. Okay, that's fantastic. It's a good place to start. So it's a non-profit organisation. That's the first thing you should probably know in terms of an enterprise. The funding is purely philanthropic at this point. And I'll give you a little bit of backstory. So, am I going to put this up here? Okay, cool. So, we have basically, I'll give you a little bit of backstory. As Felicity said, in 2000, and it grew out of Philip Mills, who founded, the son of Les Mills, franchised the fitness program for Les Mills. That was sort of his genius. He was a Commonwealth Games hurdler, and got a scholarship to the US and came back to New Zealand and started this. He's very, very, very passionate about green growth and the future of a sustainable planet. I mean, if you really talk to Philip candidly, he'd tell you there's going to be a genocide of 1 billion people. He feels very, very passionately about what's happening on the planet in terms of the systems approach to whether it's pollution and exploitation of resources and so on and so forth. So when the current government came in 2008, they threw out a lot of, and I wasn't here, I was living in America for a long time from 2014. So a lot of this was, for me, was like sort of from a distance as well. So, but when I saw this, they formed the Green Growth Research Trust, which was in response to the government throwing out Helen Clark's language around sustainability and some of the green issues that they were moving towards at that particular time. We had the GFC, as you guys know, And a lot of pressure came on this concept that, oh, sustainability is like a line item in the marketing budget, right? But that's not how we think about it. We look at it as a systems view, look at an entire system, the planet as a system, the ecosystem as a system. So they formed the Green Growth Research Trust, and the current environmental minister at that time, Grosser, he kind of threw out the results and said, you know, whatever, you got this kind of lame, like we're doing that anyway. So Philip then spent a ton of money with the University of Auckland Business School and Vivid Economics in London, and created what we would call our resources over here. Everything you guys need is going to be online. And I'll sort of share access to team leaders for analytics and social media, so we can regroup on that afterwards. So you don't have to sort of take any notes. A lot of it's going to be all online research. So Philip formed the race plan and the full report and the initial report. These are pretty big. This full report is about 360 pages. It drills down a little bit more specifically into the initial report, and then the race plan, which is about a 30-page document. But what it came up with was it looked at and so they looked at New Zealand in 2012 when they launched this. They looked at New Zealand with a whole bunch of opportunities, and it looked at it drilled down to 7 advantages that we thought aligned very specifically to our future. So there's a lot of talk about, oh, New Zealand, our emissions are 0.15% of global emissions, so why should we do anything? We're clean and green anyway, right? Wrong. So if you look at it a lot, and so our goal ultimately, if we look at a big lofty, a BHAG for us, is to transform the New Zealand economy into a low carbon economy. What's our framework for doing that? Our advantages, which are over here. And I can pull the bullet points up here in a second. And so they are agritech, biodiversity, bioproducts, housing, renewable energy, smart grid, smart city, and waste to value. And so these are quite specific to New Zealand. In fact, they're 100% specific to New Zealand. There's not many other countries on the planet that have those kind of advantages. So we have the tyranny of distance, which works in our favor in regards to this. And we have low population, which is also good. And it just so happens that a lot of our industry, our export is primary industries, as you guys know, right? So, but when you look at, I guess, our advantages in that way, we haven't really focused on them as best we possibly can. You know, we're questioned pretty hard on pollution of our waterways and the lack of our value add across the primary rivers. We still ship logs to China and wherever else, Asia, and they come back in chipboard, and we put them in our houses that aren't even insulated. So I'm a little bit cynical in some aspects around this, but it's pretty real when you really drill down into it. So where are we going to work off this here? So here's our advantages here, as you can see under this. I pointed out the resources over here. So am I not going to get my computer up here anymore?
If you got PowerPoint, yeah, we could use that, but I don't think the internet is working on your computer.
Oh, okay. All right. So, So then I'm going to keep going here. So when I came into Pure Advantage, late 2014, they said, we spent all this money on putting up, creating these advantages, creating this race plan, and the concept at that particular time was to get a corporate leader around each of those advantages, or what we call a corporate cluster, and generate projects, programs, and activity to move that organization forward and use that influence to influence government and policy, and therefore change. That was sort of their initial game plan. And so they spent a ton of money on launching it. That was the concept, but then nothing really happened. So when they brought me in and said, can you do anything with this? Can you fix it? I have a background in the media business and entertainment space, so the way, and green growth. So the way I looked at it was like, well, let's tell the story of New Zealand businesses that are doing this, are already leading in this space, are pursuing green growth, are pursuing a sustainable strategy embedded into their overall vision and mission. And so they said, okay, let's do that. So we rebuilt the website because the previous one was kind of like from the 80s, it did nothing. And so we started to get a more of a dynamic platform. Now, when I talk about philanthropic backing, while I have some very wealthy benefactors over here, it's not a lot of money that comes in, okay? Because they spend a ton of money to build it, and it's also, there's a lot of other things going on. So I'm fairly resource constrained. I would have to say, I know that Matt had asked me to give you some numbers in that way. It's under $200,000 a year overall funding, okay? So that covers anything I want to do, all this content that comes up here, me, taxes, expenses, rent, like everything. So I feel like I'm a bit like a one-armed paper hanger half the time because I'm trying to juggle so many different things and try and get help as well. So, but this, they supported this launch, and when we launched with a big paper on housing, because at the time they'd done a bit of research on housing, and so we looked at how perhaps robots could help us, you know, get more efficient housing. We looked at off-site manufacturing. So if you scroll in here, under here, this report here, An Idea Whose Time Has Come, was really the big article that launched the new site. And the concept and the strategy from there on was to deliver 2 pieces of original content per week, Tuesdays and Thursdays about midnight, 1:30 in the afternoon, because Monday people get jammed up with everything, Friday they're checked out for the weekend, Tuesday and Thursday seem to be good sort of media times to give people new information. So that's what I've been doing for the last year. And to help myself do that, I've got a CRM on the background called Insightly, which is sort of now a pipeline of content. I will show you that in a second if I can log in here. But and so that's the driver of what Pure Advantage is now. And by moving into a more dynamic platform, I've been able to get analytics in the background to, you know, to tell us what's working and what's not a little bit more, right? So then hopefully when I can really, and that's some of the questions I'd like to put to you guys, like how better should we use these analytics? Like what kind of data should we pull out of what we have, and how can we use that to better guide us toward new investment? Because what these guys will do, if I turn up and say, we want to do a documentary about the issues around water in New Zealand, they may fund it. Or we want to do a fairly big, robust study on the future of an electronic highway and uptake of EVs and how the green IP can build out of like a smarter grid and smart technology. So, you know, so let's do a deep dive on that. So ultimately, I guess we're a think tank. It needs a media platform, right? But it's sort of because we're resource constrained, the big question is, where to? Like, what do we become? I think the question is what you've got to look at. If it was me looking at this, I go, well, the questions I do have are, you know, what's the end game? So I'm doing 2 pieces of original content per week. We socialize it. We boost that. So we socialize the original article, and then every day I'll do sort of an aggregated media post, which is designed to be a sort of an international thought leader. So we look at what they're doing in California or the Netherlands or the UK or India or wherever, and contextualize that into the New Zealand setting, even if it's a microcosm. The other day I posted something about how India is now committed to doing 100%, you know, electric vehicles by, I think, 2050. You know, it's like, there's 4.5 million people here. Why the hell can't we do that? You know, like in a heartbeat, why can't we do that? We're very long and thin. We've kind of got one big highway down the whole length of the country. You know, here's this giant country that you know is putting a big stake out there like that, and we haven't done something like that yet. So that's I think that's served a little bit of an overview. Let me see if I has anybody got any questions at this point?
Quick question, Simon.
Yep.
So you mentioned earlier how India is planning to become an electric car using country by 2050. I see that as a public sector sort of driving that initiative. Do you see any sort of way of getting the private sector in New Zealand sort of tying in with the public sector to achieve an initiative like that, and how does Pure Advantage play a part?
Right, so New Zealand's, Pure Advantage's focus is on the private sector, as Felicity mentioned there. We believe that if the private sector can catalyse this change, it will influence government. That's a multi-layered answer around that. In fact, I just got an article that I'm reviewing to post, and it talks about what is it going to take to influence policy change around that space. And there was a number of discussion points around that when we talk about it. I mean, you've got a fringe benefit tax, you've got road user charges to talk about, you've got public awareness. There's range concern that people have in terms of the uptake. Ultimately, an electric car right now, even if it was available, is more expensive. So and you've got a quietly building electric charging network, so all of that. What will really make that change will be the carbon price, and I talked about it with, I think, one of the guys earlier. Our emissions trading scheme, I don't know if anyone's familiar with that, it's under review right now, which is the framework or the sort of the tool that is supposed to get us to a low carbon economy. When that little history I told you about before happened with the point of view of our government, the carbon price just went to the floor. It went to pennies. It needs to be, and so what that meant was that people that were growing permanent forests that sequester carbon and do international trading in that way didn't have any guarantees of their future investment in terms of an ROI. So they just quit. The other big elephant in the room on there is the agricultural sector has been carved out of that. So they don't really have a responsibility to reduce their emissions. Our ag sector is about 48% of our overall emission profile. Admittedly, that's probably more methane. Methane is 21 times more concentrated than carbon dioxide in terms of its ability to hold on to heat. But that's just a big elephant in the room. So it's sort of like, so if the price of carbon was higher, it would sort of make more sense to look at other different mechanisms that use less carbon. But then you get very specific in terms of embedded carbon, in terms of what it takes to get the car here, all sort of stuff. But, it's just about what we're putting out there. But New Zealand's big. My opinion on this and Pure Advantage is it's like we should be leading in the green space. We should lead where we can, and we should follow quickly where it makes sense to. I'm not saying we should lead everywhere. We should be what we'd say called as a canny leader, right? So, where we have been one of the highest, I think we're the biggest producer of dairy globally, we have been, right, of milk powder. That's being overtaken now because that systems thing, or the systems that they put in place, those protocols, are now being usurped and built on a lot more quickly in America, in Asia, in South America, in Africa, and Europe. I mean, so they're getting much better prices for their dairy solids. Sort of like the kiwi fruit story. We grow kiwi fruit, and all of a sudden we don't own the word kiwi fruit, and then it's everywhere. So it's sort of that. So So I guess what I want to go to now. Let me see if I can go to. I had all these pages lined up here, and then I don't have internet, but let me see if I can remember the passwords. So I guess the big tool that I use right now is this one inside, which is a CRM. So is anyone not clear on what I do, what we do? Everyone's clear. So there's how many people are in here? Probably 60. So I expect 60 sign-ups overnight to the website. Excellent. really, really good for us. Okay, so I guess I have a little bit of a BD or business development function, which is, so I will reach out to business leaders and say, hey, why don't you tell your story of what you're doing on our website? Like any of these companies on here. Right now, I've got close to 100 articles that are on here of new companies over the last year, which is just awesome. These are our recent stories here. In fact, this one here might interest you, this fleet farming. I just gave awarded sort of an ambassadorship to a graduate business, New Zealand business student to write a series of articles for us. So my main driver, and this is at Carly, is actually, she's doing an MBA over in Florida, but to get this content up here, what happens when you start getting really cool content, you raise your own bar, because it's got to be well written. It's got to be 100% sort of word perfect, grammatically smart. And yeah, we're in that sort of time frame of Tuesdays and Thursdays. And that's what I was talking about before, like, what's the end game? Do we become Huffington Post? No. Do we become, what do we become, But what happened recently was anyone familiar with Element magazine? So it was a green insert, a monthly insert into the Herald. And it was all about, green ecosystems, sustainability, low carbon future, all that sort of stuff. Because the Herald, NZME, looked at it and said, you guys are not earning enough money from your ad model, we're going to cut it. So they're gone. So we've now in the space, which is the cool thing about Pure Advantage is it's not aligned to subscribers who pay me money. I mean, that's a big question, but it's kind of hard to ask people to do that when I've got very wealthy individuals who want a better future for New Zealand behind it. Well, what am I getting out of that? Then the other thing is like, okay, so like a sustainable business network, which is another group, more of a community-oriented, still business, but broader, other group, sbn.com, I guess, .co.nz. They have subscribers or members that pay them an annual fee. Same thing with Sustainable Business Council. So there are two big platforms, and they all put out newsletters. We put out a newsletter once a month, around the 20th of the month, which recaps about 9 articles that we've been able to produce through the month. And, so then you go, okay, so you got to then pay for the content. I can go to a corporate, and some of that content is a little bit soft because they have to run it through comms and right? And so it needs to be sort of vetted. Unless you get a very outspoken, CEO, like if I go to this one here, well, actually, I'm jumping around a lot, but if I go to say, I just did a partnership with Kiwi Bank to help me produce content, so they've been paying for content across the advantages. So I've done, I've got about 3 more, I think. So here, this guy here, the CEO of Flick Energy. Is anybody with Flick Energy in your apartments or houses or flats or whatever? You should be. This guy's really cool. So very outspoken, but I get a very, that's a bit softer because the strategy behind the partnership with Kiwi Bank was something that I'm going to put to you guys in terms of the case question when we sort of settle on it. Is like, how do we broaden our reach? Okay? And how do we get our stories into the eyes of more people? So I can't show you the metrics real quick because I have to log into everything, but we have about 2,500 followers on Facebook. If I boost something, I'll get up to 10,500 for a good article. We have about 6,000 people on our database, so we send the newsletter out to that many people with about a 33% view rate for 2.5 minutes, which is pretty solid consistently. And that's trending up. All of this is trending up slowly, like it's trickling. I feel like if I put a cat rolling over with a ball, I would get a whole lot more viewers really quickly, right? But it's an academic, technical, complicated, sometimes story to tell. So part of the challenge has been to get this story here by Adrian, who used to be TV3's environmental reporter. This is his new business, right? And he wrote, this is the right way it should be written. It's like cleverly written. It's a bit user friendly. It's about 650 words. And that's kind of easy. You've got, like, in terms of your time and your busy day, you kind of get that. You can give it a quick scan, take what you need, go on like that. However, some of the articles are really long, and they take a bit to sort of wade through, you know. And so, you know, like this one here from your very own university, we helped launch the Green Chemical Science Department here last year. This is really technical, and it's only going to appeal to so many people, but it is green growth, and it aligns to our advantages, and it aligns to an enterprising future for New Zealand that we can do very, very well. But who's that going to appeal to? It's going to appeal to a sort of a fairly limited audience, right? Whereas the one that's previously might be more broadly viewed. So the concept with, so there's that, right? So there's that, but then the idea I had, so how can I continue to fund this? What if I go to a corporate partner like Kiwi Bank, and they'll give me money, and we will put articles on their site, and we put a branding around it for them. That's not how we figured it out. What we ended up doing is that they pay for the content, or they outsource the content, and you know, I sign off on it, and then we post it, and then they boost it on their site. I mean, Kiwi, I don't know, they've got like 800,000, you know, people who bank with them, but I don't know how deep this is. And then they socialise that on their social media, which is much bigger than ours. So I guess in a few weeks I'll have some data around that, like how successful has that been in terms of broadening our reach, you know. And I'm seeing our numbers, you know, trickle up, but you know, so that's sort of one big question. What else was I going to say? So I guess some questions to take away, like what is the Pure Advantage ecosystem? Who else sits in there with us? And so I think the other advantage of being self-funded is that we can be really opinionated. So I can be slightly provocative. But we're also a solutions-based enterprise. We're not like, oh my God, the seas are rising and it's got really hot in February, the hottest February that it was ever, after January, which was the hottest January ever. Let's see what happens around March. I mean, there's been places on the planet that haven't even had a winter. We used to have a winter. I mean, if you look at that and you see what's going on, you just see what's happening. And in terms of the systems thinking, it affects everything from where species live in the food chain to access to water, and these are the things that are going to impact us in terms of our trading partners, how much it costs for us to get stuff, you know, whereas our advantage is if we're focused on them wholly and we add value to that, and we have, so people they come to New Zealand because it's clean, green and beautiful. They buy our products and they think they're organically grown and they're natural, right? And then we're going to pay a premium for that sort of stuff. Sanford Fisheries ship fish off to Asia now, overnight. So it's on someone's plate, and they know that it was caught 5,000 miles away in clean waters outside of New Zealand. So they're going to pay a premium for that. And this is the kind of food, when you've got, you know, moms who are concerned about their kids growing up with toxic inside them because of bad food or processed food, they're not going to do that in the future. It's just not, that's the trend. If you look at, you know, all lowers, like the lifestyle of the healthy people, that sort of stuff, that whole business is like billions of dollar sectors that are talking about healthy living, and it's all tied into the system of a greener economy. So anyway, so there's that. So I use this CRM, which basically I loaded all our contacts into here, and organized a little bit around organizations and leads. Basically, in terms of put my BD hat on, you get a lead, so I'll talk to Jonathan Sperry at the University of Auckland, and I'll say, hey Jonathan, why don't you guys tell a story? And you know, let's get on. So he'll say, cool, I'll do that. So then I'll put it in, I'll create an opportunity around that. Here it is over here. Let's say, like I'm working on one with, okay, so I've got Agracy, I just got that in, which is a really cool sort of, it was a marine product that now is taking the place of, you know, like if you've got palm kernels from palm trees that goes in our, you know, food for cows during winter. Here's a natural product that's just on our shores, and it's been added value to. So I track this, and then I now know that that's in, and I can put it in our opportunities, and then, you know, once it's been published, I can just manage this over here, and I can look at our all-time articles. You can see I've got here's the pipeline and the pie chart phase or view. And you can, so you have all these articles in discover phase. So I've talked to all of these people. I'm sort of hoping that they'll give me an article. I drill down into like what's in progress, and some of these have got dates on it, so they're going to be published on those dates in the future, and that's being published. Now that took me a lot to get to that. And it's just me doing all this here. Like sometimes I go, I really need help to run this engine. At the same time, I've got to go and do, social media, and then come do things like this, which are really, really valuable because you get more buy-in when you go and do personal connections and go to conferences and that sort of stuff. So that's a little bit about, I guess, our ecosystem, who we're compared to. I guess, so there's a content strategy, there's a distribution strategy, there's projects, and then the future. I guess I'll look at it that way. The content strategy is produce content to a targeted audience within our ecosystem, which is kind of what we're doing. Do I maintain that? Do I increase the quantity of articles? That's going to cost more money, take more resource. Why am I doing that? Who am I going to try and compete with? Is it going to be read? What's the kind of content that we should be writing? What kind of style? How long? Should it include more video? I think it should. Then there's the distribution. So there's corporate partners. Let's continue on that angle. See, that's sort of a little bit of like, not all. And this is something I would talk about very, very discreetly, because you'll offend people and then I'll get fired and then I'll be really unhappy. Not all of these guys are focused. Well, these two gentlemen obviously are not alive, but they were founding trustees. But not only these guys are focused, the people I talk to the most are Philip, Stephen and Rob, and they're really, really involved and really engaged. But Sir George, Chris Liddell, Jeremy Moon, Jeff Ross, and Sir Mark, I don't have meetings with them, they're not communicating. So there's a little bit of that sort of governance. And I probably should stay away from that in terms of let me worry about that. If you really want to talk about that in your report, let's have that conversation. I don't think that's a problem, because we needed to get some runs on the board to get the engagement from the eyeballs and the people out there, and that's what I've got. I wish I could show you the analytics, because it shows you the demographics are sort of, we do get some young people under 16 to 24 is a viable demographic. 35 to 44 is our biggest swath of people. Where are you? Oh yeah. No, it's because I've got some facilities that used to try to log into the old server. Yeah. Okay. So. Okay, so we talked about potential corporate partners, and so I could do that. So the point is, if I've said this, I said if all of your companies between Icebreaker, Moa, Ikoya, Villa Maria, Naitahu, if all of these companies engage, if I could get to all of your social media content people and coordinate and collaborate on these articles, I've got most of the country covered in terms of people who are online somewhere looking for something. But I haven't got that, and I can't quite get that from them. And I'm not really, it's too hard to sort of ask that, so I'm going to go sort of do it this other way. Stephen Tyndall, who founded the Warehouse, there is a conversation I could have around partnering with the Warehouse, but they just got a new CEO, and they're also, which I would criticise a number of companies in New Zealand, except for, say, Air New Zealand now, and Bank of New Zealand. You should look at those two case studies in terms of recent media, Air New Zealand in particular. They're knocking it out of the park. I mean, they're focused on, carbon units and they fly jet planes, for Christ's sake. I mean, it's like they're burning fuel all day long and creating emissions, but they want to create a sustainable airline because they know it's the future. So that's the other thing. So like the new CEO of Warehouse is not quite ready, hasn't got figured out. Like we import all this crap from all over the world. Yeah, go ahead.
How do you approach like a business that is apprehensive to sustainability?
Depends who's the hero I've got.
Yeah.
Yeah. New Zealand's interesting because if you talk about our NZX 50, right, a lot of the companies are financial institutions. So that's pretty cool. And a lot of the banks are making really cool plays around sustainability. Community related, financial literacy, it all sort of ties into the systems thinking of the triple bottom line, in terms of community and culture. They can go and make all their buildings, green builds and net zero energy and waste and recycling and all that sort of stuff. But the big play for them is their portfolio investment, right? Are they helping out Bathurst Coal or all these other mining and oil companies and Shell and so on? How are they leveraging that? And then 350.org, which is another sort of lobby group, talks about divestment. And that's good. I mean, that is a good thing. I do believe in that. But there is a school of thought, and people like Bill Gates sort of think about it this way: is like, if I divest my portfolio from my fossil fuel entities, how can I leverage their future with that investment? If it's big, But like groups like the Rockefeller Foundation, they divested completely from all of their fossil fuel, holdings, which is just massive. One of the founding fathers of oil. So an organisation may not be quite ready, then you just wait and you sort of park it a little bit and you work around. But in New Zealand, there's not that many choices. A lot of our CEOs are sort of Australasian or in other parts of the world. They're not always here, so you haven't got like, say, like a Steve Cook from Apple or a Yvonne Chouinard from Patagonia, which is another company you guys should look at, who really puts a flag in the sand and says, I don't know how we're going to get here, but this is where we need to go. And Christopher Luxon has done that within New Zealand. Anthony Healy has done that with Bank of New Zealand to a certain extent, been quite vocal. A number of also corporates in New Zealand are quite tied into, even though New Zealand is 40% owned by government, I think, they're quite tied into the government. So New Zealand doesn't really want to, New Zealanders they play sort of, they're more easy to get along with, right? They don't want to sort of rock the boat sometimes, and I guess if there's a lot of government buy-in, it's tricky to kind of upset that apple cart. Like some of my partnerships with DOC people, they're really they make it nervous because of it, because our language is quite opinionated. So they can't, Bill English should say, well, hey, you can't be saying that, because you can't say the government sucks in sustainability because you work for the government, so why are you saying that in public? So they're going to be politically kind of sensitive. Let's see. So we talked about content strategy, producing content for target audience within our ecosystem. How much do we change the quantity of articles? It's going to take resource. How are we going to get that resource? Distribution we talked about. Corporate partners. Create a content communication strategy. Content repurposing is another thing that interests me. I did play around with Instagram for a little bit, but it's just time consuming to try and figure that out. What I wanted to do was create a campaign around the country that could get buy-in from people, hopefully young people, everywhere, and take us, show me a photograph of some clean tech, green IP. That's the thing. How do we make that cool to you guys? None of you guys had even seen Pure Advantage before, so clearly I'm not hitting any audience at all. I mean, it's really lame. That's disappointing to me. We've got to have a better connection. If anything comes out of this discussion, will be how to engage your demographic across the board in the country quickly, the way Generation Zero did with their transportation initiatives, with their Get Out the Vote initiatives, the way the Obama campaign engaged young people to vote in the 2008 election and 2012 and held on to those people and made them part of that future transformation. That's really what this has to be. That's what this platform has to do. So what stories and messaging and how are we going to get that content, what different formats and typologies and frames over what time periods can we create and develop to get buy-in and engagement? Go ahead.
Sorry, Simon, we've only got a few minutes left, so I was just hoping to
Oh,
open
sorry.
up the floor to Q&A now.
Oh, okay.
Is that fine with you?
Okay, yep.
Okay, so do we have any questions?
I have a question.
Yeah.
You mentioned that your primary focus is private industry, correct?
Is what?
Private industry, like targeting and.
Yeah, that's the concept is that we represent, private sector.
Okay.
Yeah.
So how do you incentivize a corporation to get on board with some of your policy pitches and stuff like that? Like, what are they getting outside of the company profiles that you put on your website, outside of like goodwill? Are they really committing to green policies, and is there any follow-up on your behalf to make sure that they're implementing whatever green policies they may suggest other companies do in the future?
Well, I think that the short answer to that is, what do they get out of it? They get a different media platform they wouldn't otherwise have. And depending how opinionated they want to be, that's sort of a free, sort of a Switzerland type platform in some ways. Like it's not going to be edited like it might be in another media format, perhaps. There's no obligation, but the thing is, what started to happen is sort of like gets like, right? So people want to start to be part of it. I've got more articles in my pipeline now than I've ever had before in the last 6 to 8 weeks, and I know that it's working. People are liking it. It's trending up, but it's trending very slowly. I want to blow it up like quickly.
We want to increase engagement.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Would you say sustainability is limited by technology? For example, the electric car, obviously it's like sustainable, the technology is far away.
Is far away?
It uses up a lot of electricity, the battery uses more efficient. Would you say that's
Well, we're 80% renewable, mostly from hydro. If we had a solar blanket across the whole country, you go plug into your garage overnight or a fast charging station with solar panels on the roof or whatever. It's all renewable resource. Battery technology has improved vastly. The Tesla Powerwall is coming out this year. Panasonic have got a battery. So that's technology that is just increasing exponentially. Yes.
Yeah, on the line of technology increasing exponentially, say, how would it be from like one era transitioning to the other? Like before we were using petrol, now we're using electricity to power.
What about hydrogen? There's a big that could solve it all. I think EVs are a transitionary mechanism anyway. I mean, the question is how many people in here own a car, how many people take public transportation, how many people don't really care to own a car because of the capital investment, because it might be a problem to park it somewhere. If it was real easy to get around the Auckland and the CRL, and buses were reliable and good and better, and there was driverless cars that you could just sort of jump into on your route and then get it out and it keeps going. I mean, that's the future. So go on more.
Is there any key ways you see yourself growing in terms of reaching your different demographics?
Yeah, the two ways which I'd sort of pass on to you would be, I guess Apple and Facebook have now got Apple News Service and Facebook Instant Articles have opened up their new services. Facebook opens up.
So social media is big for you?
Yeah, but those news services have opened up. The problem with that is it's helping them get more people through their portals on the site. It's not our ecosystem that's targeted and better for us to influence. So it's like, so the question, I'm trying to get staff to take some of our articles, they just haven't yet. I haven't pushed the right buttons yet, I haven't got the right nod from the top or something, right? But it hasn't happened yet. I haven't had one article sort of shared in the Herald or stuff yet, and that should happen. That should have happened already.
So you want to reach as many platforms as you can?
Yeah. And then the second one on that front really quickly was, there's a link that I sent Ria and Matt earlier. The Marriott hotel chain has created sort of a content strategy around telling stories in that corporation. And so you go into one of their lobbies and they've got media screens, everything, there's all whether it's kayaking or hiking, and just it's a really more dynamic interface with their customer. So that then sort of, just to answer your question, tangentially, and I'm not sure if I could do this, but I'm not sure if it's the answer, is sort of go in and sort of be competing with ad agencies a little bit, but because we've got this authentic brand, to go on and do strategic consulting and media building building a narrative for that business mission with an organisation, sort of pitching, right? And they pay me to do that, and it helps my revenue stream. That's one other way. Advertising, integrated advertising is another one. Offsetting, like I've done with Kiwi Bank, is another one.
Final question.
Take two more. Take these two. Two quick questions.
I'm just wondering, what kind of proposal would you like from us? Is it like the key point is like how to spread the idea, or like what's your like main interest?
I think the big question, because I constantly look at this and I go, my business mission is kind of nebulous. Okay, so I'd like to better define the business mission and have some very clear sort of steps and goals to get there. This is cool. This does work. People are liking it, as I said, and I get a little bit of funding to make this work. And it's interesting. I'm talking to more and more people around the country. More and more people are engaging, but I want to do it. Oh, we're here, and I want to. You go ahead.
What are your main market segments that you attract currently?
So there are the advantages basically over here.
No, I mean in terms of your customers that actually go on your site and look at your content.
Yeah, the demographic you mean, or
yeah, demographics.
It's very broad. It's broad. It sort of it peaks around 35 to 44, but it's across the board. It's 16 to 65 plus. Academics, business people, greenies, you know. So it's a huge range, but across the advantages, it gets very specific. Yeah. So I mean you might have some followers, but just I think you guys are going to need some information. I guess my suggestion, I'll circle back with Ria, was that I can tomorrow if I could talk just to the team leaders. I guess we get a group of the team leaders, or I'll find a way to give access to some of the back of it to the team leaders, and then at the end of the week I'll just kill it off so you can't do anything more with it. But I don't think there's I talked to my site manager. I don't think there's anything there that you can sabotage. But anyway, so I don't know. Is it interesting, or should we get another case? Huh? Interesting? It's pretty important.
Also, do you want to just like get young people involved as well?
Sorry?
Do you like targeting young people as well? Because you mentioned like you want to get young people involved. And
Yes.
the face like us come up with ideas.
I would love, if we could get, if you guys thought this was the coolest thing to go out and tweet and talk about and share, right on. Otherwise we're like a bunch of old white people up there, right? We don't want to be like that. We want to be diverse. This is the next way.
Before everyone leaves, I just want to formally thank Simon for
You're
coming
welcome.
in. We really appreciate it.
So unfortunately we've run out of time for our rules briefing and also our case study briefing. If you have any questions about just the general competition, the format and everything, you can just post onto the Sustainability event page, Sustainability Challenge event page, or email us at ua.specialized@gmail.com. We'd just like to invite everyone who's still getting outside. We've got a Sustainability Week for UA that's launching, so feel free to mingle and have a